All right, welcome to Modern Mondays here at Guardian Games. This is Travis Cooper, hanging out from Portland Paper, and we're with a modern aficionado here.
Justin Hadley.
And yeah, we're going to commentate on a pretty sweet pairing here. We've got Sam Schaefer on Sultai Teachings,
Ooh,
which I have yet to actually see in action,
same.
versus Mikey O'Connor on Grishoalbrand.
I do like me Grishoalbrand. It's one of my favorite decks in Modern. I love anything that's degenerate and spicy. And this I did play this for a brief time. And I remember myself, my friend, and Mike were all three playing this deck at an FNM, and we were just like talking about how ridiculous it is. And Sam also always plays weird, obscure, off-the-wall decks, so I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, we have a very degenerate deck and then a exceedingly slow deck. Do you have a favorite in this matchup?
I would probably have to go with Grishoalbrand. I'm actually not familiar with the teachings list specifically. But if it's rather slow and doesn't have any counter magic, and if Mike can get off the ground, he could. I mean, I've definitely turned one people with the deck before, but it's not easy. But turn 2 and 3 is very realistic.
Yeah, I've looked at a couple of teachings deck list that have 5-0'd. It hasn't really seen any paper results. It's a pretty new deck, but from what I've seen, most of the decks are running 4 Remand and 4 Cryptic
Okay.
Command, which I can really get behind any deck that's playing a 4 of those cards.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I had a feeling that Remand was in the list, but I wasn't positive. Cryptic I didn't know because it is Sultai, but Remand would be kind of sticky, especially if Mike uses any guides or rituals to cast his spells. That's a great start.
Yeah, a turn one play for Mikey is fetch land into Faithless Looting. You've been another looting and a Grizzlebrand. So to me, that says that Mikey might even have additional looting in the hand, or it's full of good stuff.
Yeah, stuff that he doesn't want to get rid of. Rituals, guides, and probably another land. But as you said, teachings running the Remand. He's definitely representing it.
And a Night's Whisper for Mikey. He's gonna lose some life, draw a couple cards.
Probably knowing that Sam is representing the Remand.
Yeah, the Sultai teachings list are centered around mystical teachings, so a lot of instants, and Wilderness Reclamation, the new enchantment that costs 3 and a green, and you untap your lands on your end step.
Okay.
And so basically, Sam's trying to stabilize until he can land a Wilderness Reclamation, and then you're going to utilize your mana for Blue Sun Zenith, etc.,
hmm
and just cast a bunch of counter spells. And there's tons of one-ofs, because with mystical teachings,
Right. More
yep.
toolboxy, and that makes a lot of sense. I do love mystical teachings. I play ad nauseum, and I do play that card in that deck. And
Okay, it
I
seems
know.
like that's maybe a flex spot in there.
Yeah, for sure. But I know how powerful the card can be, and it's a popper. It's banned in popper, right?
Yeah, I have not kept up with the Pauper
Me
band
neither.
list,
But
so we got a Scry off a Temple of Malice for O'Connor here, and is it going to stay on the top? It's a Thinker. Deep Thoughts. Okay,
on top.
2 mana.
Oh,
Whoa,
that's a great addition to the deck.
we got a new one here. Do you,
I don't know what it is, but I do know that it's Surveil to draw 1,
okay,
I believe, for a blue black hybrid and a colorless.
and both of them are going in the graveyard. So it's a Borborygmos Enraged and a Swamp. Okay, we're getting to the 4 mana spot here for Sam.
Which is where he wants to be. And Mikey tapped out, so no instant speed shenanigans over there. I think I see an Assassin's Trophy in Sam's hand as well.
Okay, I think Mikey just realized what was going on. The jig is up. Curious if we're gonna see a Wilderness Reclamation right now. I want to see interesting and sweet things happening.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm voting for it.
I'm very glad that this is the first match on the docket.
Okay, that was a pretty heads-up play by Sam there to fetch in the main phase so that Mikey can't respond to a
Exactly.
fetch land activation and fire off an instant speed reanimation spell.
Killing people at instant speed is my favorite thing in Magic.
And another scry there with the Dimpled Malice. To the bottom. And a pass back. It's a lot of basic islands for a 3-color deck.
It is. There's quite a few. It makes me. I was gonna say makes me curious if he's playing back to basics, but that's just because I'm playing too much Legacy lately.
If only that was a card in Modern.
Oh my God, I know the Blue Blood Moon, except better. I don't know about better. It's very different, but being a Eldrazi post player in Legacy, I know how bad that card can be.
Okay, we get an opt at Mikey's instep for Sam. Sends it to the bottom, draws a card. Alright, Mikey went to clean up and then just discarded a Worldspide Worm. Goes back to the library.
Makes me curious if Mikey's waiting for Sam to possibly tap out for something and leave himself sort of defenseless, because usually at this point, if he has the creatures in the graveyard, he's probably ready to do something, or he's got a breach in his hand and he's hoping to do something with that. Possibly try and get him with an end of turn Goryo's Vengeance, and then have it get countered, and then do it again on his main phase.
Yeah, I'm sort of wondering if Mikey has a Spirit Guide that's going to end a turn through the breach.
Yeah, or do something weird with Splice on the Arcane, because people don't know how that. I know how that works because I played the deck, but a lot of people that mechanic still confuses a lot of people.
It is not a very intuitive one.
No, it is not. It's the reason it has never come back.
Alright, just a lot of draw, go, pass. Both players probably have some powerful things in their hand, but are, kind of I feel like Mikey doesn't want to pull the trigger without it being absolutely necessary. And kind of against this Sultai Teachings deck, they're not putting you under hardly any pressure, so you can wait till you have a fair amount of redundant pieces in your hand.
And Mikey was on the draw in this game, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I feel like it may have been a slightly different ball game had he been on the play. Don't know for certain, but with his turn 1 play, it definitely could have been. He definitely has to play a little more cautious and reserved.
And Mikey just wanting to draw some more cards.
Draw some more.
It feels like at this point, if you're able to assemble a Through the Breach and then maybe 1 or 2 copies of Goryo's Vengeance, you're going to have a hard time losing once you start casting spells at Sam's instep.
Yeah, for sure. And he could also do. He could also cast the Shoal for free and splice onto it and keep his Breach or his Goryos, or splice a Breach and a Goryos on it, because he definitely has the mana to do that right now. Well, 1 more land and he can do that.
Yeah, Mikey's been discarding to hand size here, and I saw at least 1 Simian Spirit Guide hanging out in hand, so presumably there's some other good cards in there if you're pitching looting.
Yeah, that is a great card to have in your hand, but it's also a great card to be in the graveyard.
And we're going to get a flashback with Faithless Looting. Maybe trying to bait that remand. It's a pretty good target if you've got a remand.
Yeah. Asking if he played a land. Oh, Growth Spiral. I do like that card a lot.
Another Grishoalbrand in the graveyard. So you have 3 reanimation targets.
He could also be building up cards in his hand too. Granted, I would doubt that most of the cards in his hands are lands, but it's a very real possibility where he could just reanimate Borbrigmos and just throw his hand at him. I don't think that's a line for victory, but
it is a thing that one can do.
Yeah, I have definitely hard casted discarding a Ritual. I've definitely hard casted Lightning Storms from my hand with Ad Nauseam and killed players just by discarding the lands that I have without comboing.
Looks like we have a Fatal Push discarded for hand size on Sam's cleanup step. And when are we going to see some action here?
There's a lot of stuff going on, just less explosive than I was expecting.
Another opt on Sam's side.
They're both just waiting for the other to make the first move. That's what it feels like.
Oh, there is a Mystical Teachings.
Oh, he has, yeah, Mystical Teachings. I think 2 remands. I think he has 2 cryptics in his hand as well. So yeah.
Through the breach.
But
Gotta perhaps do something about that, but you
this
could even like cryptic bounce, which it's probably not the best move if your opponent's gonna put in a Grizzlebrand. So we're just gonna get a remand.
is he gonna Goryo's now? He does have two on. Oh,
Sam's got to discard some cards here to hand size. I'd be interested in discarding a teaching. I didn't quite see what was pitched.
trying to figure out what. Do you know what that card is? The one that Sam is holding at the very front of his hand. That's the only one that I'm having a hard time figuring out.
Looks like it. I can't quite tell either. If anyone in chat can see the hand better than we can, feel free to let us know. Snapcaster's picked up for Sam.
That's a great pickup.
You do have to start pressuring Mikey's life total at some point.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see a end of turn Snapcaster opt possibly at the end of Mikey's turn.
And through the breach again. And we're getting another remand. Deja vu.
Except it's not Deja Vu, because that is a card.
Alright, we have Goryo's Vengeance on Grizzlebrand still on the end step.
I
Feels like Mikey probably has some additional... I mean, it's going to have Through the Breach next turn.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to maybe navigate around this one.
So right now he only has Cryptic or Remand. He does not have both. But he does have Snap Remand, and if he has another Remand in his hand, then...
It doesn't quite have the mana for all of that.
Oh, right, yeah. Yes. Snap Remand is 4.
Yeah, I feel like Mikey maybe navigated this into a situation where Sam is not going to be able to
counter everything.
Counter the reanimation spells, yeah.
Yeah. I am glad that Goryo's Vengeance and Through the Breach both got recent reprints now that they are... I mean, because they have been errated to say at the beginning of the next end step, which is a lot of things that people sometimes are unfamiliar with the original wording on the card.
Alright. We get a Grizzlebrand. It's in play.
Choosing not to activate.
We're still on Sam's end step here. I think Sam was getting ready to go to cleanup. I think there's some discard that needs to happen.
He could, I guess I'll say he could Cryptic and bounce it, but then he could. We've already seen the Through the Breach
right.
in his hand. And also, I think Mikey can just hard cast Grizzlebrand, right? He has 8 lands. So.
It's true. Sometimes you don't do anything, and then you just hard cast a Grizzlebrand.
Yeah.
Devour Flesh.
Oh, that was the card. Okay.
Well, so Mikey is going to draw 7 here, and then Devour Flesh, your opponent. An opponent sacrifices a creature, they gain life equal to its toughness, target player. So, yeah, that's a free draw off Grizzlebrand there, basically.
Yeah. Very interesting card to be playing. I get it. It is an instant. It is teaching's tutorable. There aren't really that many effects like that in Modern either.
Got to have an out to boggle.
True. Or an Emrakul.
Okay, Mikey is gonna just draw probably the rest of their deck.
Yeah. Mikey's definitely. We haven't seen any guides. Mikey's definitely and we haven't seen the Metamorphose. He's definitely in a spot where he can, if he has enough shoals in his hand, he can just win right now. Which is the beauty of this deck.
Yeah, it's pretty much just Grishoalbrand and Ad Nauseam that can win at like instant speed.
Yeah.
In Modern.
I can't tell you how many times people have cracked a fetch land and turned themselves off of Cryptic mana, and I have responded by killing them. It's fun.
Okay, so Mikey was using a Nourishing Shoal to gain a bunch of life there. 11, in fact. Went up to 16, then went down to 9.
He only has 4 cards left in his library. If I can see that correctly. There is a chance that he... Oh, now he has plenty of lands.
Alright, we're getting a Borberg Mouse targeted with Goryo's Vengeance. Mikey presumably has more than, let's see, 3 lands in hand.
Yeah. The Grishoalbrand, I believe it plays. I believe it plays 19, between 18 and 20 usually lands, and he did have 8 of them out, but
4 cards left in the library.
still enough to kill,
Uh,
and he can attack with the board break modes too, so the hidden mode of the card is attacking.
all right, so sideboard-wise, I'm not too familiar with Grishoalbrand sideboards. What are we going to see? Some like Thoughtseize type effects probably hanging out in there.
The deck usually doesn't play It usually doesn't play Thoughtseize. It usually plays, if it's discard card of choice is Collective Brutality. Sometimes it's played in the main board, but having the ability to have additional discard outlet for it is very good. So I could expect to see those come in, assuming he doesn't have it in the main board. And the deck also plays, usually has some number of Blood Moons in the sideboard, which I do like because it is Sultai, but we did see a large number of islands, which is, like you said, very strange for a 3-color deck.
It does feel very much like the Sultai deck is very base blue with just a light splash for interaction and Wilderness Reclamation in general. I could see any deck that's playing that much blue is probably going to have some amount of counter spells in the graveyard, whether they're negate type effects or dispel. So I would assume Sam is bringing in as many of those as there are in the sideboard.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the teachings list, so I do not know what else it could have in its sideboard, but I would imagine some number of that. I'm probably a large number of one-ofs because of the teachings package. So I could see possibly a Disdainful Stroke. I don't know if that is in the sideboard, but if it is, I would probably bring it in.
It looks like we've got a lot of Fatal Pushes, Ubuntu's Last Reckoning, some Assassin's Trophies going out.
Which is all good stuff to take out. Except this is when your opponent through the breach is a World Spine Worm and has 3 5/5s on the battlefield, and you wish you had a sweeper.
I imagine there's also some amount of more than one, especially in a Snapcaster deck, of Surgical Extraction hanging out in Sam's sideboard.
Yeah, that is true as well. We get a small glimpse of that.
In Modern nowadays, there's one Surgical, maybe a Surgical and an Extirpate.
No, it might have been an Extirpate. Extirpate would be awesome. I saw a Dispel, an Echoing Truth, a Surgical Extraction, a Vendilion Click, which is very interesting. But I do like that, especially if Mikey goes to cast Through the Breach. I have had many Vendilion Clicks cast on me after that card, and had my creature put on the bottom of my library.
It does always feel great too when your opponent activates an Aether Vial or casts it Through the Breach to respond with a Vendilion Click, hit a card, and then have them not have another relevant card that they draw.
Yeah.
Usually what happens with me is I'll be like, haha, I'll get your Primeval Titan, and
they
then
draw one.
They draw one.
Or a Summoner's Pact, and then just like holding priority. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what Mikey is bringing in, because I know the Grishoalbrand sideboard is usually, it was the same for a while, but I'm not sure how it has changed recently.
Blood Moon still seems like a strong sideboard card with a lot of Amulet Titan floating around there. That's one of the better cards against that deck. Yeah, it seems like it's not a deck where you can diversify your threat package very easily post-board, which a lot of creature combo-oriented decks like Amulet can do that. Grishoalbrand, you're sort of stuck with legendaries mostly. Maybe there's an Emrakul hanging out in Mikey's sideboard, which could be a card that gets brought in.
Yeah, there's also a chance that he could be on the deck kind of goes off and on up, having Pact Negation in the sideboard as well. Because if you're comboing off, you definitely don't mind casting Pact even if you can't pay for it. It doesn't matter if you win.
It plays around Remand very well.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
Gonna draw 2 off Faithless Looting, discard 2, World Spine Worm, and that Manamorphose. Is the Manamorphose usually just a one-of?
It is.
Okay.
It is usually just a one-of, and this signals to me that Mikey's either has another Metamorphose, or is planning to play either has a Metamorphosis, planning to play the long game, or is going to go with the Through the Breach plan, because Manamorphose, realistically, if you combo off and are tapped out when you combo off, Manamorphose is the only way to generate black mana.
Right, so you can Gorya's Vengeance, your Borborygmos
Right.
for the win.
Exactly. Or he could just have the combo in his hand too.
A Knight's Whisper on the stack for Mikey. Sam may be considering a remand, but no. Is going to elect to opt. It's like Sam is asking permission to shortcut here, as most, I would say, experienced Modern players know that time is a resource, especially in a matchup that can go very long, and just being able to efficiently shortcut is a way that more skilled players will have to actually win matches and not draw them.
Yep.
And just a land and passes it back to Mikey.
I do agree with that. I really appreciate players who shortcut and do it effectively and do it well. And the first game in this match took a lot longer than I think all of us expected it to. Maybe not. Actually,
I'm not sure what
it.
my expectations were. I was surprised at the amount of discarding to hand size each player was doing.
Yeah, that was, it was just a lot of lands and discarding.
All right, we got a Spell Pierce. Seems like that was probably out of the sideboard for Sam.
Yeah.
Just playing around, it makes it easier to play around the deck when they don't have a threat in their graveyard, because then you're just playing around Through the Breach.
Yep.
But we've yet to see the Wilderness Reclamation.
I imagine the deck plays that. Would the deck play that as is it a 4 of?
It's a 3 of usually.
3 of, okay, that makes sense with all the card draw and that you have access to.
Because multiple ones are still good. It's a trigger that goes on a stack.
It's like Amulet.
Yep. And usually you're Blue Sun Zenithing your opponent out of the game.
Okay. I was actually going to ask you if you knew the win condition, but I forgot you mentioned Blue Sun Zenith earlier.
Yep, you get 3 Wilderness Reclamations out and like 10 lands, and then you're good. Make your opponent, draw the rest of their deck.
And if it doesn't work the first time, you'll just do it again. Because if you teachings for it, and then you can just teachings for it again. If you have to split the Blue Suns into two casts.
There's a 1 of Nexus of Fate that also the Sultai's teaching list is playing, so that can also be an alternate win condition. And just a passing of the turn from O'Connor.
It's easy to forget that Nexus of Fate is available in Modern, because the only time you ever hear about it really is in Standard these days.
It is quite controversial in Standard.
Yeah, it's banned in Arena best of 1. I don't think anyone likes playing against that in best of 1.
Yeah, I would have a lot to say about best of 1s in general, but
yeah, the drafting in best of 1 is not the worst thing in the world. It's definitely interesting, but obviously draft is can be part of my French a crapshoot, but it's not always. But definitely if you're best of 1 and you just draw the wrong half of your deck and your opponent draws all their bombs, that's not really fun.
We get an in-step teachings. I imagine it's going to probably grab a Dispel. And Mikey's going to shortcut and just fetch for probably a tapped land here. Nope, a swamp. To me, that is, I'm definitely thinking, oh, Blood Moon is a card that exists. And yeah, it was a Dispel grabbed off that teachings. One of my favorite moments at Comp REL this past year was in a Jeskai mirror, and I was losing to a Dispel, and my opponent cast it. And everyone's gathered around us, the judge is there, and he's like, Dispel. And I asked him which spell, and he says, Dispel. I ask him which spell.
I love that. It reminds me of when John Carpenter's The Thing. They made a game for PS2, PlayStation 2 way back, and I went to Toys R Us to buy it, and I said, "Do you have The Thing for PS2?" And he's like, "What thing?" I'm like, "The Thing, the game." He's like, "What game?"
English.
Yep.
Okay, we had a Through the Breach at the end of Sam's turn that was dispelled. Mikey knew about that, and now we have a Faithless Looting. And we're gonna draw a card.
Growth spiral. Into another growth spiral. Still no threats in the graveyard for Mikey, though.
Perhaps that's intentional.
Yeah.
Playing around a surgical, but not anymore. There's a very shiny Grishoalbrand hanging out on top. Okay, Knight's Whisper. Draw 2 cards. Yeah, Remand very decent against the Through the Breach. Very bad when we're in this mid to late game against the Gorios.
Very much so. It's also not. I mean, it is good against Through the Breach, but the fact that Through the Breach is an instant and he can just do it at the end of his turn, having a Through the Breach remanded on Sam's end step for Mikey would be
not the worst.
Fine.
Yeah.
I would say fine.
Oh,
Yeah.
we got
There's
some
the
splice
splice.
action here. Shoal pitching Shoal, which is splicing on Goryo's Vengeance, which means if the original Nourishing Shoal resolves, Goryo's Vengeance effect gets added onto that. If the Shoal is countered, Goryo's Vengeance is still in Mikey's hand.
Yeah, Splice on Arcane is, as we said, it's one of those weird mechanics where the player reveals the card from their hand and adds the effects of the Splice spell onto an Arcane, which eventually just tacks the text box of Goryo's Vengeance on a Nourishing Shoal. So the Nourishing Shoal says they gain life, and he also gets to return a legendary creature from his graveyard to the battlefield. I can't tell you how many times I have spliced something onto a Nourishing Shoal and someone has said, so that card stays in your hand, right? And I'm like, yeah, it definitely stays in my hand.
Yeah, one of the more strange and non-intuitive mechanics in Magic. And there's quite a few of them, but that one definitely gets a lot of judge calls.
I love Champions of Kamigawa, though. I love that block. One of the few.
I like the legendary lands. Alright, Through the Breach. Mikey is just going to keep asking questions for the rest of this game. Seems like has the pieces in the graveyard and in the hand.
So we do know he has a Goryo's in his hand still, as well. So Sam either has a Dispel or a Spell Pierce in his hand, and if is what I'm thinking. And if Mikey has not played a land, he could play a land, cast the Goryo's, and then exile Simian Spirit Guide to pay for it if it's a Spell Pierce. Or Pact Negation, as Sam so eloquently just said.
I think Sam probably curious if they should counterbounce their own Snapcaster, or if we're in the counter draw territory here. I kind of like counter draw in this spot. You've used up that Dispel, so you're left with a Cryptic command, which Snap Cryptic is going to mostly tap you out there.
And Sam's down to, I think, only two in his hand. It's a Remand and a Growth Spiral.
Sam may be really baiting Mikey there with asking if he's played a land drop or not, to insinuate that Sam has a Spell Pierce in hand that is not hanging out. I do love that aspect about paper Magic and the bluffing of
like the good old pen trick. Or as LSV did at the Pro Tour, the token trick.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. With Cryptic on the stack, we've got a Goryo's Vengeance as reanimating a Grishoalbrand. I'm curious if Mikey even had a threat in the hand.
Yeah, that is very true.
Sometimes that is used as a bait spell for a counter.
Yeah, it's a big risk, but obviously it's not something Sam can let resolve, so he has to just assume that Mikey has a threat in his hand. Although I would like to see someone just let it resolve and then them not have anything.
All right.
And there's the pact. So, ooh,
Oh,
the
there's
shiny,
the cool.
the shiny legendaries.
All right,
Saving
all
the
right.
day.
Packing it up. We've got 11 minutes left. We're gonna hang out, walk around outside, see if we can catch the end of another match. If not, we might bring one of these two players back here to talk about their deck choices. But yeah, we'll return very shortly.